The feed store never went away for the Amish. We just never needed it. Our flocks run on free chicken feed, 5 plants that grow themselves right there between the barn and the garden. Walk past our coops in spring and you'll see what that buys. Fat, glossy hens, eggs every single morning, and not one feed bag in sight. No pellets, no $40 sacks, 5 plants. That's the entire system. 5 plants that quietly fell off of English farms. That's what we call everybody else, 1 generation at a time, until nobody remembered their names. We remember, because we never stopped growing them. So here's what I'll do in the next 20 minutes. I'll name all 5. For each one, I'll show you what it replaces inside that feed bag, how it grows itself back after every harvest, and what it gives you in real pounds and real dollars. And at the end, I'll lay the whole thing out as one backyard plan, all 5 working together, and we'll look at what happens to your yearly feed bill. One of these plants grows on water and doubles itself in days. Another one plants itself every spring forever. And the first one, most folks have never once heard its name. Before I say it, do me one small kindness, press that subscribe button, because every week on this channel we bring back another piece of the old knowledge the stores would rather stay forgotten. First, you should know why these plants disappeared. Because that story tells you why nobody ever tried to sell them to you. 100 years ago, a farm flock mostly fed itself. Birds ranged the yard. They ate scraps, spilled grain, greens from the garden edge, bugs from the manure pile. Every farm grew a share of its own feed because there was nothing else to do. Then the bag came, and I'll be honest with you, the bag is convenient. A complete ration printed right on the label, farms specialized, birds moved indoors. And inside of 2 generations, chicken feed stopped being something you grow and became something you buy. Feed is around 70% of what it costs to keep a bird, and that 70% now arrives on a truck. But here's the part they don't print on the label. The plants that feed a flock best were never the ones a store could sell you. You can't patent them. You can't bag them, ship them, or mark them up. A plant that doubles itself every few days is a miracle in your backyard and a catastrophe on a shelf. There is nothing to sell you twice. So these plants weren't banned. They were just quietly dropped. No ads, no shelf space, no seed catalog page. 3 generations later, forgotten. Our people kept them for a plain reason. When the store is a buggy ride away and every dollar is counted, a plant that feeds your animals for free earns its ground. Every year. Forever. One fair warning before we start. 2 of these 5 will hurt your flock if you use them the wrong way, and before this video ends, I'll show you exactly those mistakes because I've watched people make every one of them. Now, the first plant, plant 1, Azolla. If you've never heard that name, that's exactly the point. Azolla is a floating water fern, each frond about the size of your thumbnail, and rice farmers across Asia have grown it for 1,000 years. Here's what makes it different from every other plant on your land. It has a partner. A bacteria lives inside its leaves and pulls nitrogen straight out of the air. Azolla makes its own fertilizer, which means it grows like nothing you have ever planted. In warm weather, a patch of Azolla doubles itself every 3 to 5 days. Cover half a tub on Monday and it's full by the weekend. Scoop it out and it fills right back in. Now the number that matters. Dried Azolla runs 25 to 35% protein. The layer feed at the store, 16 to 18. This little fern floating on water beats the bag on the one ingredient you're actually paying for because protein is the expensive part of every sack. And it isn't only protein. Azolla carries calcium for the shells, iron and vitamins, and B12, the small things that show up as dark yolks, strong feathers, and birds that shrug off sickness. And this is not my word alone. University feeding trials in India and the Philippines swapped up to 1/5 of the hen's ration for Azolla. Egg production held steady. The yolks came out darker and richer. In Vietnam, they didn't just study it. The government spent the 90s teaching farmers to grow it, and in the Mekong Delta they still do. Peer-reviewed, published, proven, on a plant your feed store has never mentioned once. Growing it takes 3 things. A container that holds water, a kiddie pool, a stock tank, an old bathtub, anything shallow. 4 to 6 inches of water. If it's tap water, let it sit a day so the chlorine leaves. And a starter culture, a single handful, $10 or $15 online one time in your life. Set it in partial sun because hard afternoon summer sun can cook it. Azolla is happiest between about 68 and 86 degrees. Within days it's spreading. Once a month, give the water a splash of compost tea or fish fertilizer. That's the whole job. And if the mat ever stalls and turns yellow, it's telling you it's hungry. Feed the water and the green comes back in days. Harvest with a kitchen strainer. Feed it fresh, straight off the net. Your birds will teach you fast how much they love it. Fresh Azolla is 9 parts water, so sun-dry the extra on a screen and it shrinks into a concentrated feed that keeps for months. One rule you never break: leave a quarter of the surface covered so it regrows. And introduce it the way you'd introduce anything new, a scoop mixed through the ration to start, more as the birds take to it. They will. Here's the yield honestly. 1 square meter of water, the top of a card table, gives you 20-some pounds of fresh Azolla a month in the warm season. 2 or 3 containers by the coop, and the protein side of a small flock is covered for the season. Total cost after the starter: nothing. That's plant 1. It makes protein out of water and air. Plant 2 makes minerals out of rock from 6 feet under your ground. Plant 2, Comfrey. Walk any Amish farm and you'll find it on the fence line by the barn. Ask why, and you'll get the same answer everywhere, because it never stops. Comfrey grows a taproot like a spike, driving 6 feet and more into the subsoil, mining what shallow plants can never reach: calcium, potassium, phosphorus, and concentrating all of it into big, broad leaves. And calcium is the eggshell. Soft shells, thin shells, hens that quit laying, the first place to look is a mineral gap. Comfrey is the free fix, growing by the fence. Old farmers here will tell you the leaf feed's near as rich as the supplements at the store, but its real job is minerals, and that means you use it as the side dish beside the ration, never as the ration itself. Hold on to that. It's one of the 2 mistakes I warned you about. Growing it is a one-time decision. Comfrey starts from root cuttings and it does not like to be moved, so pick its spot once, somewhere you already walk every day, and it lives there for decades. Ask for the Bocking 14 strain. It's sterile, so it can't seed itself across your garden. It stays exactly where you put it. There are Comfrey patches in our county older than the men cutting them. The routine: every 4 or 5 weeks in season, cut the leaves, let them wilt in the shade for an hour to soften, and toss them in. 4-5 cuts a season from every plant. Water it in its first year. After that, the root finds its own water, drought or not. Comfrey fixes the shell, but the shell was never the expensive part of the bag protein is. And the next plant is the cheapest protein I know of on God's green earth. I promise you've already seen it 1,000 times. You just called it scum. Plant 3, Duckweed. That green film sitting on a still pond, the one you've walked past your whole life. That is the smallest flowering plant on earth. And dried, pound for pound, it is one of the richest protein feeds a chicken can eat. In nutrient-rich water, dried duckweed runs 30 to 40% protein, the top of that range knocking on the door of soybean meal, the single most expensive ingredient in a commercial sack. The amino acids in it are the very ones a bird spends on feathers and eggs, which is why keepers who feed it swear their flocks come through molt faster and lay steadier. And chickens need no convincing. The scoop hits the ground and it's gone in a minute. You can buy a starter culture the same way as Azolla, or do what most of us did and walk to the nearest quiet pond with a bucket. It's already growing free on half the still water in your county. Bring home a scoop, float it on your tub, and you're in business by the weekend. Growing it starts like Azolla: shallow, still water, a few hours of sun. But here's the piece that makes duckweed special on a farm. It loves dirty water. Take a shovel of chicken manure, steep it in a bucket, pour the diluted tea into the tub, and now your flock is fertilizing the water that grows the plant that feeds the flock. A closed loop. The birds are growing their own feed and don't even know it. In warm weather it doubles in a couple of days. Skim it daily with a net, and same law as before, never scoop it bare. Cold weather shuts duckweed down, so summer is when you bank it. Skim more than the flock eats, spread the extra on a window screen in the sun, and in a day or two it dries into a green meal that keeps all winter in a jar. Homegrown protein, shelf-stable, free. That jar next to the amaranth grain you'll meet in a few minutes is what a winter without feed bills looks like. Now, why grow both water plants? One word our people live by: redundancy. A heat wave over 95 degrees can crash a tub in a day or two. So you run 2 tubs, 2 species, 2 tolerances. If one goes down, the other carries the flock while you restart. We don't put all our eggs in one basket, and we don't put the flock's protein in one tub either. And there's a second reason: drought. When a dry summer burns the pasture brown and the garden greens quit, the tubs keep producing for as long as there's water in them. Duckweed is the reserve that doesn't care what the sky is doing. One serving note: duckweed is rich, so it works best beside fibrous greens that slow the bird down, which is exactly what the land plants are for, and the next one is the only tree on this list. Its dried leaf out-proteins the bag too. Plant 4. Moringa. Moringa is a tree you harvest like a vegetable. The dried leaf carries about 27% protein, along with vitamin A and calcium, and birds pick the fresh leaves out of the bowl before anything else. It's the fastest growing thing on this list that isn't floating. From seed in spring, you're stripping the first leaves before the summer is half done, and a first-year tree can put on 10 feet. Here's the trick that feels backwards: prune it hard. Cutting moringa doesn't slow it down, it answers with more shoots and more leaf. Left alone, it grows tall, thin, and stingy. Cut back, it stays bushy and feeds you every 2 or 3 weeks all season. Strip the leaves, feed them fresh as a share of the bowl, not the whole bowl, it's rich, and dry the extra. Dried moringa grinds into a powder that keeps for months. A homegrown protein and vitamin scoop you dust over winter feed, from a tree that cost you a packet of seed. Keepers who run it through the cold months will tell you the combs stay red and the lay barely dips, winter eggs, paid for in July. Now some straight talk you won't hear in most videos on this plant. Moringa is a warm country tree, and a hard frost kills it. In the south, plant it once and it's a machine. Up north, grow it like an annual. It's fast enough from seed to earn its spot in a single summer, or keep one in a pot, and put the season's harvest in the powder jar. Don't let anybody sell you a miracle that doesn't match your winters. The system still works, the tree just works on your climate's terms. Every plant so far you harvest. The last one you mostly just allow because it plants itself, every year, forever. Plant 5. Amaranth. Amaranth is the old grain, and it's 2 feeds in one plant. Through spring and summer it gives you thick, mineral-dense greens the birds take without any coaxing. Then in late summer it throws up heavy seed heads carrying thousands of tiny seeds at around 14% protein, real grain, real energy, the thing that keeps a hen laying when it's cold. And here's why our people never dropped it. You plant amaranth once in your life. It flowers, it drops seed, and every spring it comes back on its own. Scatter seed from a grain variety, golden giant, Hopi red dye, rake it in lightly, water it once. That is the only planting you will ever do. The season runs itself. Early on, thin the crowded seedlings and toss them straight to the flock, fresh greens from week 1. All summer, pull outer leaves. The plant answers with more. In fall, cut the seed heads when they're about 90% mature, just before they drop on their own, and hang them somewhere dry. When the heads are crisp, rub them between your hands over a bucket and the seed rains out. A breezy afternoon winnows the chaff for free. A single big grain variety plant can hand you a pound of seed, and a modest patch fills a winter jar you didn't pay for. Feed it through the cold months, whole or lightly toasted, and let a few heads fall exactly where you want next year's patch to stand. Heat, drought, poor soil, amaranth shrugs at all of it. It grows fast enough to outrun the weeds, and the birds glean whatever the harvest drops, working the patch themselves like they were hired for it. It's the corner of the yard nobody waters, quietly growing next winter's grain. One caution to carry forward. Raw seed by the scoopful is not the way. That's the second plant that can hurt your flock, and we've arrived at the mistakes. The mistakes. Every one of these plants can be wasted, and 2 can do harm. 5 mistakes I've watched everyone happen. 1. Feeding comfrey like it's the ration. Comfrey is the mineral side, a few wilted leaves per bird a few times a week, not the bucket. A handful of plants is plenty for a backyard flock. Our rule is simple. Comfrey seasons the diet, it never is the diet. 2. Raw amaranth grain by the scoopful. The raw seed carries compounds that fight a bird's digestion. Crush it or toast it dry in a pan first, heat unlocks it. The greens need no such care. 3. Cooking your water plants. A tub in full afternoon sun during a heat wave crashes fast, and it takes weeks to rebuild from nothing. Shade cloth in high summer and always 2 tubs. 4. Scooping the surface bare. Leave a quarter cover every single harvest. Take it all and you've traded weeks of production for 1 greedy scoop. And feed the day's scoop the same day you take it. A wet pile left sitting turns moldy in a day. And moldy feed is the one way a free system genuinely hurts a flock. Fresh to the birds or dry on the screen. Nothing in between. 5. Switching the flock overnight. Birds need a slow hand. Start any new plant at about 1/10 of the ration, swap upward gradually over a few weeks, and watch the eggs and the feathers. The flock will tell you the pace. Keep oyster shell out, free choice for your layers the whole way through. A sudden change costs you eggs, a patient one costs you nothing. Do it slow and none of this ever bites you. Now the part you've been waiting on since the first minute. The whole plan together and the new feed bill. Here's the backyard laid out the way we'd lay it out. By the coop door 2 tubs, Azolla in one, Duckweed in the other. Those are your protein engines. Every morning 1 scoop from each into the run, 2 minutes done. Along the path you already walk, a row of comfrey, a cutting every few weeks, wilted an hour and the shells stay hard. In the sunny corner, Moringa, a standing tree in the south, a summer pot up north with the extra dried into the winter powder jar. And on the far edge, the amaranth patch planting itself, greens all summer, seed heads in the pantry for winter grain. Add what the yard already gives, kitchen scraps, ranging bugs, and the year starts to run on its own rhythm. Spring. The tubs wake up and the amaranth volunteers come green. Summer, full flood, scoop, cut, strip, toss. Fall, seed heads in the pantry, powder and dried mats in jars. Winter, the stored grain, the dried greens, and 1 backup sack carrying you to spring. Now the honest math. A flock of 15, 20 birds on store feed runs $70 to $100 a month. Depending where you live, call it $800 to $1,200 a year. First season, while the system establishes, expect to cut that roughly in half. By the second season, with all 5 producing, the warm month feed bill falls toward 0, and the bag becomes what it is on our farms. A winter backup, not a monthly bill. The feed store becomes a place you visit once or twice a year, for grit, oyster shell, and 1 spare sack. That's $1,000 a year that stays on your farm for the price of some seed, some cuttings, and 2 tubs of water. Plant once, every one of these 5 comes back on its own. And the day arrives when you drive right past the feed store and realize you haven't been inside in a year. That day is the whole point. Not just the money, a farm that feeds itself. That's what our people never gave up. And now it's yours too. One last thing, because I know how this goes. A plan this size can freeze a person. 5 plants, tubs, cuttings, where do you even start? So don't start with 5. Start with 1 tub of water this week. That's the whole assignment. A kiddie pool, a handful of starter, partial sun. By next weekend you'll be scooping feed you didn't pay for, and your birds will tell you louder than I ever could that this works. Then add the 2nd tub. Then a comfrey cutting in the fall, seed in the spring. 1 plant at a time, 1 season at a time. That's how every Amish farm you've ever admired was built. Not overnight, just in order. And a year from now, the system will be feeding your flock while you sleep. If this video earned it, press subscribe. That's how I know to keep bringing the old knowledge back. And tell me in the comments which of the 5 you're planting first. I read every one. Then don't stop here. This system has a sibling. Our video on the $25 a week system covers what these 5 plants don't, and the 2 of them together are how the Amish keep a flock for nearly nothing. It's on your screen now. I'll see you there.